This past offseason, the Bucks went all in on winning the title this season and keeping their megastar Giannis Antetokounmpo as happy as can be by trading Eric Bledsoe, George Hill, 3 first-round draft picks, and 2 pick swaps for New Orleans Pelicans star Jrue Holiday. The trade ended up being way more complicated than that, but that's the only part that really matters as far as the Bucks are concerned. They did get the final pick in this year's draft though, if you're into that kind of thing. Reaction to the trade was mixed around the league and on NBA Twitter. Some noted Holiday's expiring contract and the fact that if Giannis hadn't extended his deal with Milwaukee, the future draft pick haul that Milwaukee was sending out could be comparable to that Brooklyn gave to Boston for Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce. While those are fair critiques, it should also be noted that Holiday could end up being exactly what the Bucks have needed, the missing piece that completes their championship puzzle. Holiday has long been one of the most underrated players in the entire league, and that's not just coming from us. Sources from across the league, whether it's ESPN's Real Plus Minus, 538's Raptor, or players like Damian Lillard, Andre Iguodala, and Kevin Durant's burner account rave about Holiday's defensive ability. He was named to the All-Defensive team in 2018 and 2019, and could probably strike up a conversation with The Weeknd about getting passed over for an award in 2020 as well. He was 9th in the league in steals per game last year, and he's in 2nd place this year. He led the league in deflections per game last year, and he's currently 7th this year. Holiday is also his own special kind of unicorn in terms of being a two-way workhorse. Take a look at this chart that plots a player's offensive usage rate from last season along the x-axis, and their matchup's average usage rate from last season across the y-axis. Basically, this chart shows a player's overall two-way workload for their team. According to figures compiled by The Athletic, Holiday's matchups had the 7th highest average usage rate last season, and his 24.5% usage rate was miles ahead of any player above him, none of whom had an offensive usage rate above 13%. This means Holiday was a huge outlier last season in terms of workload, carrying his team like Deadpool carries the X-Men franchise. And speaking of offense, Holiday is more impactful on that end of the court than you might realize. He's one of the smartest players in the entire league. It shows on the defensive end of the court in his off-ball defense and deflection numbers, and it shows on the offensive end in his continued improvement in efficiency as a playmaker. Last year, he ranked 18th in the league in assists at 6.7 per game, despite sharing playmaking duties with LaMelo Ball's older brother, and he only averaged 3 turnovers while helping make New Orleans the fastest team in the entire league. And out from the 285-pound shadow that is Zion Williamson, while his assists are down to 5.4 per game, his turnovers have been almost cut in half, down to 1.6. That assist-to-turnover ratio is similar to other highly efficient playmakers like Chris Paul and Fred VanVleet. And playing with Giannis, spoiler alert, has brought his shooting percentages way up. He was already a highly efficient scorer, but now he's shooting over 50% and almost 39% from 3, both career highs. All this is to say, Holiday is an absolute monster in terms of providing high usage, high level production on both ends of the floor, more so than he's given credit for. And as good as the Bucks have been since Giannis announced himself as a superstar and developed a passive-aggressive feud with another superstar, as is the right of every MVP, they've definitely needed a player like Holiday. While the artist formerly known as Jrue Bledsoe was a solid two-way point guard in the regular season, his disturbing habit of coming up short in the postseason was all too common to be called a fluke. He basically guaranteed Terry Rozier got overpaid in free agency with how badly he played against Boston in their 2018 series, and that man's only like the 3rd best guard on the Hornets. Eric Bledsoe's a solid player, but he didn't show the ability to be either the secondary creator next to Giannis or the primary creator when Giannis sat that the Bucks needed, especially in the playoffs. While you might assume that should be Chris Middleton's job, his strengths lie more as an extremely good 3-and-D wing. Basically, think of Middleton as a cop. He just goes wherever he's told and starts shooting. Players like Giannis and Jrue Holiday are the 911 dispatchers. Often underappreciated, but they run things on the floor, and Milwaukee's needed another one for a while. And as it turns out, Holiday looks to be just about the perfect fit for what Milwaukee needs. And Holiday's start in Milwaukee has been everything that the Bucks expected when they traded for him. While the Bucks are currently a 3 seed, 2 games behind the Sixers, they are clearly contenders to make it out of the East. The Bucks being the 3rd seed has more to do with improvements by the 76ers and the Nets than any step back by the Bucks. Plus, Holiday has just returned from missing 10 games due to health and safety protocols, and the Bucks were just 5-5 in that stretch, including a 4-game losing streak. The last time the Bucks lost 4 games in a row was to the Raptors in the 2019 Eastern Conference Finals, and the last time the Bucks lost 4 games in a row during the regular season was in 2016, when Jabari Parker was their second best player and Matthew Dellavedova was their starting point guard. So, it's safe to say that Jrue makes a big impact on this Bucks team. The Bucks and Mike Budenholzer have an established system that works well for them, so they needed a star that they could plug in during the shortened offseason and continue to contend at a high level. The Bucks didn't trade for Jrue Holiday so that he would come in, average 20 points a game, and change the way they play basketball. They traded for him because he wouldn't. Besides being one of the most underrated players in the NBA, he also has to be one of the most flexible and the most humble. We're talking about a guy who can score 20 plus points while adding all defensive level defense, and he's perfectly fine moving to Milwaukee and becoming the third option behind Chris Middleton. He went from being the man in beautiful, sunny New Orleans to being the third option in freezing cold, not so sunny Milwaukee and didn't bat an eye. He guards the other team's best player every night. Although he's currently attempting his fewest field goals per game since the 2011 season, he's thriving in his new role. Casual observers may look at Jrue's stats this season and think that he's having a down year, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Compared to last year, Jrue is playing fewer minutes and taking fewer shots, and he's having a much more efficient season. His career-high 50.2% field goal percentage makes him one of only 6 guards shooting over 50%. Along with his increase in efficiency, his 1.6 turnovers per game is a career low. If you compare this to Eric Bledsoe's stats on the Bucks last year, Jrue blows him out of the water in each one. And almost every advanced stat also favors Holiday over Bledsoe, with Holiday having a higher PER, offensive box plus minus, defensive box plus minus, and more win shares per 48 minutes. But the biggest reason the Bucks traded for Holiday was to have someone to run the offense when Giannis was on the bench, and that's exactly what Holiday has given them. The Bucks cannot contend in the playoffs if they become a G League team with their MVP off the court. Last year, the Bucks suffered a 12.8 point drop in net rating with Giannis on the bench, and this year, that number is only 6.6 points. This isn't because Giannis is less valuable than last year, but rather that the Bucks are less reliant on him, and this will pay off come playoff time when he can play more than the 30.8 minutes he averaged last year. After all, nobody was jealous of LeBron's workload on those 2018 Cavs, except maybe Kyrie Irving. Lastly, let's take a look at these lineups featuring Holiday and other Bucks players. These are the Bucks' top 4 two-man lineups that include Jrue Holiday. As you can see, none of these players are starters, nor are they considered great offensive players. Yet Jrue has been highly successful playing with any or all of the Bucks' bench players. Jrue's ability and willingness to lead the second unit is one of the most important reasons that he was the perfect offseason pickup for the Bucks. Ultimately, Holiday is an elite defender, both as an on-ball stopper and an off-ball maestro, and a very good offensive player. And that profile makes him one of the top 25 or 30 players in the league. And while Milwaukee has certainly been very good, it might just be the case that they needed a player like Holiday to truly be great. Thank you so much for watching. This has been Matt from Just Another Day in the NBA. Don't forget to like and subscribe and let us know what you think in the comments below.